Hey everybody, welcome to our InfernoCast number 003. I, of course, am Inferno Fox, the owner of this YouTube site, podcast, and everything. And with me here, I have my many esteemed friends and family to discuss video games. And I want to go ahead and take some time to introduce them to everyone here and to everyone listening. First, we have Simbu Darkfang. He is our level 5 grandpa and resident of Basement of the Dead in Aurora, Illinois. That again is Basement of the Dead in Aurora, Illinois. Simbu, thank you for joining us.
Hey, you kids, get off my lawn.
Never. Next, we have Stormrosesky, and she is with the Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky. Thank you, Storm, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Next, I have Jason the 13th. He has his YouTube channel of Jason the 13th. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
And we also have Jamie Owls 87, formerly named LJ from the last podcast. Jamie Owl is, of course, my partner in crime. Jamie Owl, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And last and certainly not least, we have Mobster. Mobster is my best friend, and he is also Jason the 13th's brother. Jason the 13th and I have dragged him kicking and screaming to a number of different video games. I probably kicking and screaming the least with what's that little series, Halo? Yeah, I'd say Halo.
Easily.
So thank you all very much for joining me here. And for today, I want to discuss a topic that is really prevalent in all types of gameplay, and that, of course, is difficulty in video games, and specifically kind of making a comparison between NES hard and more of a current genre that we see, and that, of course, is the Souls-like, or games such as like Dark Souls. But before I do that, I actually want to take some time just to ask everybody the games that you're playing, because I always like to see if week over week to see if we're playing anything different. And we were all actually off last week due to the July 4th holidays. So it's been 2 weeks or 15 days since our last cast here. Jason the 13th, what are you playing?
I'm still Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. My recording's been going so slow because I haven't had time. It's been busy right now.
Oh my gosh, I believe it. How many hours do you think you're at with Zelda?
Oh, got a good maybe 10 hours. I haven't gotten to. I have not gotten to play it nearly as much as I'd like to.
I that's probably because we're all dragging you in on our fork knife games, and yeah, you're probably playing a lot of the Pokemon still.
Yep.
Simba, what are you playing right now?
Well, I just finished Stick of Truth a little bit ago. And surprisingly, it's a game that people are sleeping on, but oddly satisfying. Power Wash Simulator. Believe it or not, it is actually very relaxing.
It's funny too. I think Square Enix actually published that. They didn't make it, but that's so odd that the makers of like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, oh, here's Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah, out of all the kind of titles you would expect from a Square Enix dev, a first person water shooting game.
Oh, that's too funny. Storm, how about you? Are you still also playing Stick of Truth, or what are you good at getting into now?
I have finished Stick of Truth. I am now on the Fractured Butthole. It's so much fun. Just so much fun. And also still trying to beat the Valkyrie Queen in God of War. And let's see, working on I'm always gonna forget the name of it. The Dawn Horizon. The first one.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So I'm a little like maybe 20% through. So because I've gotten just addicted to the South Park games, and then there's Fortnite. So
The only question I have, Storm, is that 20% of the story or 20% of the game? Because when you're talking to Zero Dawn, that is a big difference.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe story, just like very a little past the intro. She's not quite gotten to go to that big challenge yet, you know. Like she's preparing to leave. I think I just left it after she just talked to what's his name, and I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, that's her mentor, I think.
Yes, yes. She just left her mentor to go do this big challenge thing. So
So you
that's
got
where I'm at.
past you got past the part of her playing as a little girl, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly where you are.
Yep.
Yeah, because Jamie, you had finished both of the Horizon games from I'll say start to finish, but not actually like completing them. You beat them all.
Yes. Like I for both of them I played some of the side quests, but I focused more on the main storylines because if I try to get through every single quest, I'll probably be playing the game for like months. Because I like to take my time. I try not to rush through it, but with so much games on my backlog, I focus on just finishing the main story. And then when I want to go back to play them again, that's when I'll go and just, start playing the side quests then.
And to that end, Jamie, what games are you currently playing right now?
So I'm still playing Luigi's Mansion 3 on my Switch. I also started playing The Sims again. I had a hankering of playing The Sims and building houses, and you make fun of me because every time I play The Sims, I'll play maybe like 5 minutes of it, and then I have to change my house or my Sims outfits or create a new family. But yeah, I'm just focusing more on the Switch right now. With Switch games, I was playing SpongeBob for a little bit, but then I started to get a little bored with that, so I thought maybe just to kind of, stop a little bit, play The Sims, and I'll go back to that eventually.
That's cool. Nice. Mobster, how about you? Besides Fork Knife, what else are you playing?
There's games outside of Fortnite. I didn't know that. Talking with a couple friends, we might get back into Rocket League a little bit, but primarily Fortnite.
Now, if I remember, you were telling me some of your other friends were trying to get you into Warzone. Have you gotten into that a little bit?
No, I have not.
Okay. I'm really, that could also be another podcast topic because, so two podcast topics. One is just the military shooters in general. The other is the fact that, if I'm remembering the stat, it's 1/3 of all video games, people that play video games do it for military shooters like Call of Duty and Warzone and stuff. 1/3 are sports games and 1/3 is everything else that we play. That could be another topic. But if you do get into Warzone, that'd be something where I wouldn't mind doing a podcast, or even like we do like a one-on-one or a smaller podcast, right? Or for anybody who's interested in joining, just kind of discussing that, because from what it's funny, I've heard some people say how military shooters are sometimes like guilty pleasure games, but so many people play them. So it's like, what's to feel guilty of? Like if people want to play a military shooter or they want to do Candy Crush, it doesn't matter. If you, they're games, they're video games, just enjoy them and have fun. But let me, getting off my soapbox there. I'm going to go ahead and get back to the big topic, main topic on hand. And again, that is my topic of the NES hard versus Souls-like games. And before I kind of journey into that, I just want to give a big shout out to my buddy Joe. He was the one who had actually suggested this. So again, Joe, if you're watching / listening, thank you. Definitely appreciate it. This will be something that I remember you and I would be talking about whenever we were at work or whatnot. But really, the idea of something being NES hard, and I kind of classify all 6 of us as older gamers, and really it's because all 6 of us have had 30+ years of video game experience each. We've all played video games on like the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, so on and so forth. So we really know and understand how these older classic games really had that sort of ramped up difficulty. And really NES hard is anything that it's almost inflated to be difficult just to really, one of the little myths that I've heard is games were inflated to be difficult so that they could actually sell more, so that like you rent something at Blockbuster or Video Vault or something, and you're going to rent it longer, you're going to rent it for more days and everything, because you're going to take longer to beat it. And I forget, I saw something on Twitter like 3 or 4 years ago where one of the old developers for one of the old games, it wasn't Battletoads, but something like that, actually confirmed that was true, that they actually did make those old classic NES games that difficult so that people, it would kind of lengthen the time people play and lengthen and increase the amount of video game rentals. And Jason, I think you and I even had a discussion about this. I think you, me, and your oldest brother, who is not currently present in this podcast right now, had that conversation, and it kind of seemed like it was conspiracy territory, but it apparently was true, at least according to this one developer. But examples of NES hard games are stuff like Silver Surfer, Ghosts and Goblins, Contra, Battletoads, the first Mega Man, Castlevania 3, and Ninja Gaiden. And all of us here, most of us at least, have some experience with a lot of these different games and everything like that. And kind of getting to the idea of Souls-like, like what the heck is a Souls-like? With NES hard being stuff from like 30 years ago, you got Souls-like games, which are as old as, like, I want to say the very first Souls-like game was Demon Souls. And I could just feel the crucifixion in the comments section, people getting ready to type and say, that's not when Souls-likes began. But if memory serves, it was Demon Souls that released when the PS3 first came out, from the company, they're literally called From Software, that this genre was born. And essentially it's that kind of like, think like how the PS2 kind of God of War games were, except more kind of zoomed in. The combat is tighter. The main character that you design is really, it feels a little slower, a little more sluggish, and it's a hell of a lot more unforgiving. And then that's generally what a Souls-like game is. And again, examples of that include Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 through 3, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. I was almost said newly released, but it's not. It's been out for about a year and a half, Elden Ring. And then even Metroidvania games like Hollow Knight have been called like a Souls-like game, just because of how difficult that is. And Jamie Owls and Jason, I'm going to be kind of getting your feedback on Hollow Knight, because I know you both have had some experience with that. And then even like roguelike games like Dead Cells have been classified as that. So before I kind of bring into the okay, what's more harder, what's more difficult, just want to kind of get a little bit of gauge from everybody here, just to kind of see which of these type of games have you guys played? Which of these games in particular did you guys find the most difficult? So like what single entries were like the bane of your existence? And yeah, I know I said the topic is NES hard versus Souls-like, but if you got a game that was on like Mobster, for example, you got a game on the Xbox that you felt was just super hard. When I ask you, feel free to mention that, for example. But Jamie Owls, let me ask you, what out of all the games that you've played at NES hard, Souls-like, or even neither, what game or game titles have you found the most difficult?
So there's two that come to mind, and I played them when they were first on the PS1, and it's those Crash Bandicoots, the remastered version. Playing the first one, for some reason, I don't know, like, if it's just me getting older and I'm not as fast as I used to be, but I just felt like the first Crash Bandicoot came for the remastered version. It was a lot harder than it was for the original, and the same one for the Lion King. When I was a kid, I was probably 7 or 8 years old when I got that up for the Super Nintendo. I was so good at that game. I beat it from start to finish. Like, I played it through for one night, but then when I got the version for the Switch, again, I don't know if it's because I haven't played it in so many years or it's because I'm just getting old, but my reflexes are not as fast enough. And if you guys remember, if you ever played the Lion King, the level where you're in the waterfall with the logs, oh my God, I just wanted to throw my Switch across the room because I just could not beat that level, and it took me a couple days just to get through to it. But those to me were like really difficult.
Yeah, I remember that being frustrating. Like, I was getting frustrated watching you play that just because of how much of a
My
pain in
blood
the butt that
pressure
one
went up.
level is. Oh my gosh. Simbu, how about you? Let me ask you, what game or games have you found the most difficulty with?
Well, I am going to have to agree with Jamie Owls with The Lion King. And it's not the logs, it's the stupid boneyard where you got to do the jump back and forth,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
where the lava is just rising up at you. That level right there, I'm sorry, that was the bane of probably most people's existence. Because it's a timing thing, and of course with the limitations of gaming back then, you know, button presses weren't as sensitive as they are now. They were a bit, harder to hit. But other than that, the original 1, 2, and 3 Resident Evils, that stop drop shooting, I could not stand it, to the point where I hated Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. I love got the remasters 2 and 3. I love the remasters because it takes away that whole stop and drop, because let's be realistic here. You're trained in firearms. You're still going to be able to shoot while you move. You're just not going to be able to shoot as well. But again, limitations back in the day.
And it's funny too, because like, if you're part of STARS or the Raccoon City Police Department, even if it's your first day, you're gonna have firearms training, so you should be able to move and shoot at least reasonably well. At least you'd think, right?
Well, and I mean, if you're in the STARS, Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Squad, I mean, let's be let's be honest with ourselves here. You are like the Navy SEALs of the police department at this point. So you're not just going to go, oh, I want to be in the STARS and come out of boot and yeah, you're in the STARS. No, you've got to have extensive training for something like that.
Absolutely.
But
Mobster, how about you? What video games have you found to be the most difficult?
I really trying to think of a good answer, and I'm trying, like, the most I could come to think of is like probably like something old school on Nintendo. I think it was the Simpsons game. I think that one was really hard, and I think Ninja Gaiden was pretty hard back then. But I don't play near as many one-player games now as I did when I was younger. So
It's funny too. I remember even when we would play Ninja Gaiden on like Virtual Console on the Wii, for example. We would trade off lives and everything, and we managed to beat the first one, which is, God, how difficult that game is. And then I do remember you playing the first Ninja Gaiden. I don't know if it's a reboot on the Xbox, the original Xbox. Man, that game was hard too. But Jason, how about you? What games have you found the most difficult, individual?
There was one game, and I tried to remember the name of it, and I can't. It was a some kind of castle game back on the NES. There was like a Cubert character. You were going around the castle, and as you went around, the castle spun. It was 2D, and you kept going up, and you had to get to each of the top castles. That game was horrible, but fun games, and this is where I'm going to show my age because it's all like NES games. I did for a while. I enjoyed and I don't know what the genre of them are called because there is a genre for it. The Twin Eagle, the Gunsmoke, the Super R-Type.
The shoot 'em ups.
Yes, shoot 'em ups. There we go.
Genre.
I used to play a bunch of those, and they were always fun, but you could not beat them. And you bringing up Silver Surfer is hilarious because Silver Surfer was basically a shooter up game, and the only way I ever beat that thing was using a Game Genie and cheating.
Cheater.
Those were
He's a
hey. I've done my fair share of Game Genie in the past. Those were the worst games. The hardest games were the shooter ups. I don't think I ever completed any of them other than Silver Surfer, and that's because of the Game Genie.
And it's funny, Silver Surfer, from what I've heard a little bit online from people who like go back to these old games, they usually have Silver Surfer in the top 10 of hardest.
NES it was an insane game.
And you would think other shmups like Life Force, Gradius 2, and others that are on the system would be there, but no, it's always Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Game. Storm, how about you? What single games or multiple have you found difficulty with?
Mortal Kombat XL, the Mortal Kombat 10, is a lot harder than the Mortal Kombat 11. And I even have it set on the super, easy level, whatever, because I'll always play with the easiest setting so I can actually enjoy the game instead of getting super frustrated. But this one, even on that easy setting, it's still a butt kicker. So I stopped playing it because it was just annoying. They shouldn't, if I'm setting it to be easy, the boss should not be always killing me. I know bosses should be hard to kill, but I should be able to get a couple of hits in if I don't have it on the insane setting. Another game that I played on the Switch that I got rid of was the newer Donkey Kong game, because I got spoiled by the newer Mario Kart, where if not Mario Kart, Super Mario,
Odyssey, right?
Yes, where you could save, if a level was giving you a hard time, you could save that spot and come back to it. That Donkey Kong game, every time I died at one point, it set me all the way back to the beginning. And that was just not going to work for me, because if I kept dying at the same point and you're making me play all the way back at the beginning, nope. So I noped out of that one. And yeah,
it's funny, Jamie Owls, you remember, because Storm's talking about Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I believe you and I have played that.
Yeah, we have. And I agree with Stormrose, because there were a few levels myself that I just kept dying, and whenever I die, I go back to the beginning again. And also some of the bosses. I think the last boss I played on that game was the octopus one, and that was the one that I ended up just, having to take a break from it because I just wasn't having fun with it.
And for context, Jamie Owls got to that's the 4th world boss, and there's only 6 worlds in the game. So for you to have gotten through 4 worlds of this game, that is pretty impressive. It by far is not only one of the best of the Donkey Kong series, probably one of the best platformers on the Switch, but it's also one of the hardest entries on the Switch. And there are things in the game, because it's a port or an update from a Wii U game, a version of it on the Wii U, but there's updates on it, kind of an easy mode thing where you can play as Funky Kong to make it easier for you, because it has more health, and I think you can like glide through the end of the rest of the stage or something, and other stuff to make the stages easier, like more hearts and balloons, so if you fall, it brings you back up, but it still doesn't change the fact that the game is hard as hell.
And I really liked it, and I do want to play it again, but it's just all the levels they make it too difficult. It becomes very easy for me to just to give up.
Yeah, and that kind of transfers into my next question, Jamie, Owls, and Storm, because you guys bring up a good point about, like, you know, some of the games are fun. Like, you want to play Donkey Kong and you want to play Mortal Kombat XL, but how much does the difficulty deter or defer you from the games? And Simbu, I kind of want to move to you on this and kind of bring in the whole Souls-like genre, because in offline topics, offline discussions, you and I have talked about Souls-likes in general, and how you really don't like those type of games. If I could kind of get your feedback on whether or not, what it is about Souls-like games that you dislike, and then if I can get your second opinion on if games are too difficult, if they just make you lose interest.
Are you asking now, or were you
I'm asking you
waiting?
now, sorry.
Okay. There was kind of like a loaded barrel right there.
Yes, I'm throwing two loaded Donkey Kong barrels at you.
Yeah, clearly. Well, to answer the first half of this with you know, the whole Souls-like and what the reasoning behind it is it's just it gets to a point where, you know, in the storytelling alone, you've got, you know, oh, this samurai warrior, blah blah blah. Like, you know, as I'm assuming Elden Ring, because I've never played it, but I'm assuming you're some kind of like you're some kind of warrior, and that, you know, and you're clunky, you're sluggish, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first day as samurai. Ha. And to the point where all you're doing is legitimately, okay, watch. Okay, when he does this, hit this button to dodge. Dodge. Poke. Dodge. Poke. And to the point where he's got 1,000 HP and I'm doing 50 damage to him with each poke.
I think you explained every video game boss ever.
Well, this is where it differs, because in every video game boss ever, yes, there's a lot of that. Jason, I will agree with you on that. There's a lot of that. However, in most video game bosses, if the boss hits me once, I'm not threatened with pretty much death immediately, or I'm not, you know, oh, one hit KO. That is what Elden Ring and Dark Souls and all that are. To the point, like I said, to the point where it is not fun. It gets frustrating. It's, you know, in like I know people who have played Elden Ring to completion, and few of them have told me they'll spend 10 hours one boss.
Yeah. Yes. I absolutely 100% agree with you. Sub my own little 2 cents is that I've put about 10 hours total into Elden Ring myself, and about 4 to 5 hours into a couple bosses. So I absolutely sympathize. I think that's the
Empathize.
word.
I believe it would be empathize, but
No. I'm saying sympathize, because losing 10 hours just to one boss, and it's really a rush. I think that when you finally actually beat the boss, it's that rush of endorphins that's just, yes, I did it. And I think that's what these people who really love the Souls-likes are chasing. They're chasing that endorphin rush of, I beat that boss. But it goes back to what you had said, or kind of the point, like, is it worth it? Is it worth the 10 hours of time? Or, Simbu, would you prefer to use that time in Power Wash Simulator, and you're cleaning like 10 different walls or something like that, or you're doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you made it up to level 5 grandpa. You know, are you investing the time wisely by just throwing that all on one boss? So
Yeah, you know, or for example, you know, Jedi Survivor. Great, great game, fantastic story, amazing combat, a lot of fun. And it's a bit of a Souls-like game because when you're fighting enemies, you've got to learn the attack patterns. You know, you've got to memorize. When I see this, I know that an enemy is gonna do this. If I see this, I know that. I know this, I know that. Dodge, block, parry, you know. But in Jedi Survivor, it's no boss takes you more than 30 minutes. You know, there's a lot more story. There's, you know, it's like, yes, you got this, you know, grueling boss fight here for 30, 40 minutes. But then you're not going to see a boss for another few hours at least. And it's going to be, you know, the best boss in the game for Jedi Survivor. Spoiler alert for those who haven't played it, although you should have already played it if you're going to. It's been out long enough. Rick the Door Technician. Best boss in the damn game right there.
oh man, is that kind of like a Sans Undertale thing where the most unassuming guy is the strongest guy?
If you don't know Rick the Door Technician, just look it up here on YouTube. You will see exactly what I'm talking about. It's a fun little joke gag that they put in the game. It's kind of like when Adam Driver did Matt the Radar Technician.
Oh,
that whole
gotcha.
sketch.
Ah.
So it's kind of something like that.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I dig it. That's great. And it's funny how I feel like the whole Souls-like formula where you put in so many hours to do these type of fights and everything is kind of that auto-inflated difficulty where, like Simbu had said, you take one or maybe 2 or 3 hits and you're dead. That's it. And you go back all the way back to the beginning. Not only do you go all the way back to your last save, which could be hundreds of yards away, but you've lost all of your experience points because those are orbs that leave you when you die. And Jamie Owls and Jason, you know that firsthand from Hollow Knight, as do I, because when you die, you lose again all your experience. So you got to find your little ghost guy to get all that stuff back. But
it's the same thing in Jedi Survivor.
But like you said, at least the bosses are only a half an hour, and I'm hoping that you can get hit once and not die. You know?
Oh, you can get hit a few times.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, this isn't a Mario game. I mean, in Mario, you could get hit once or twice and you die. I mean, but obviously Mario games, the difficulty is it's not the same. It's easier.
There's a whole other arena here.
I like games with a little challenge. However, if I'm playing and all that's happening is that I'm dying, I'm losing all my progress. To me, honestly, that just takes the fun out of playing video games, in my opinion.
I agree.
Because then it becomes work. You have to work to get all that stuff back.
Yep.
Yeah, and then if I worked hard on collecting all the items that I found, or going through the level or getting to a spot or figuring out where to go, and then suddenly I get killed and having to go back to where I started. To me, it's that's a waste of my time and I can't get that back. I might as well play a Mario game.
And it's funny because I feel like NES hard games like Contra and like Silver Surfer, you get power-ups and everything, and if you get hit, you lose the power-up. But even still, with Contra, if you die, you immediately respawn exactly where you died, and there's no progress lost. And I think Silver Surfer, there are no checkpoints, so you're screwed if you get hit. I mean, that's why that is one of the toughest games. But yeah, whereas with something like a Souls-like, it's just that much more unforgiving. I kind of wish my one buddy Runjin Run was here, because he's had a lot of experience with the Souls-like genres, and he was explaining to me when we went to the video game summit last weekend, one of the nice things with Souls-likes is that it's kind of like a script. All the bosses and everything like that are scripted. You learn the patterns, you can dodge around it and be able to defeat them. And as Simbu had said, like, the boss has 1,000 hit points and you do an attack and it does one damage or something, you can get around the script and chip away at the health and everything like that. And as bad as it sounds, I countered with the fact that, okay, you can chip it away, but I remember very clearly in my time with Elden Ring, when I was fighting bosses, that bosses would introduce whole different patterns that weren't seen on other attempts that I was doing. And I've heard stories where individuals who've put in 10 hours on bosses, and on hour 8 or hour 9, the boss will start throwing a different attack that they've never done before at all, and they're not prepared for, and they end up getting screwed over, and then they end up dying, or because all it takes is one bad run to reduce your health from this to this. And yeah, you might have been able to get past that part, but any of these bosses in the Souls likes, you can't afford to let your health even get that low. You have to have full health, just kind of as a background. So just, yeah, and in general, I don't know, I'm going to assume everyone here really hasn't played as many Souls-like games. General consensus from everybody, yay, nay, no Souls-likes?
No.
Yeah, I would
A
agree.
few of them, just a few, but not like I've completed any of them.
Jason,
I think it would come down to, it depends on what, games are being considered Souls-like, so it's like Jedi Survivor / Jedi Outcast. Are those both Souls-like? Because then, God of War, is that a Souls-like?
no, yeah, that's another. It's funny. It's where it's like that overinflated difficulty is kind of how I call it. Or obviously the biggest indicator is if it's made by From Software. So if it's not made by From Software, it could be Souls-like, like Hollow Knight. But yeah, Jason, what Souls-likes have you played?
Well, if we're going to where when you die, everything restarts, the original one that I can think of, NES Rygar.
Oh.
We played the heck out of that game, and that was one, you died, you started at the very beginning of the game and had to do everything again. That was one of the first examples I could think of that kind of game.
Now, if memory serves, I've played it recently, and I say recently, where maybe like 2 years ago. So that's really not that recent. One of the things I noticed with Rygar is you do, I think it puts you in the beginning of the area, like the world where you're at, or like location or whatever, but you do keep all of your health upgrades and then your tools that you've gotten from beating the bosses.
Because I didn't remember. I don't recall it. It has been years since I've played it, though. You could very well be correct.
I'm like 80% certain, because I could have sworn I've seen speedrunners too. Like I think it's
maybe
Argus.
Maybe it does have a checkpoint, and I just don't remember it.
But I mean, like that game can be pretty difficult. That is not an easy game.
No, that was not. But it was a fun game. We had our interest for a while.
And like that was one of the original like Metroidvanias before that was even
a thing.
A thing.
Yep.
So like a general question is just simply like, do we like playing these difficult games? Is it fun? Is the challenge worth it? Is it something that you like doing? Mobster, I'm gonna pick on you. And I know you more focus on multiplayer games. So even based on some difficult matches that you had, I'll kind of edit my question for you especially. Do you enjoy difficult situations in multiplayer games, or even tougher multiplayer games, or even just difficult games in general? Is that something you like?
I mean, yeah, difficult situations are always, a good thing to have to challenge you to kind of get your skill there where you want to improve yourself, but it's another thing to make something so difficult where it's almost impossible to beat. If it's like that, then it's just like, okay, you trying again, and it gets a little tedious, and then if it's bad enough, you can finally just be like, well, screw it and give up, like whatever. But I mean, you don't want it like easy breezy, like, oh, I just went through this game with no problem because it didn't give me a challenge. So I mean, it's definitely, you definitely want, I mean, and again, and I don't think the whole game should be like super challenging and hard, but you definitely want your challenging periods in a game.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially with like kind of that feeling of, hey, I was able to beat or complete this game. But if it's Hello Kitty Spring Breeze, you don't there's not that same like level of satisfaction for beating it or completing it. So Jason, what are your thoughts on that? Do you enjoy playing difficult games?
Here and there, yes, and I get the whole like how you were talking the endorphin stuff for beating it, because like with one of my main games, Pokemon, it's the same thing with the shiny hunting. When you finally get that shiny, it's that feeling that it's all right, I got accomplished it. Doesn't matter whether it took you 100 tries or 1,000 tries, you get that endorphins. Now, shiny hunting is much easier than any of the Souls games. So, but sometimes the challenge is nice to do, but it does get to the point where it gets too much sometimes.
And shiny hunting is a different kind of challenge. It's like a mental challenge, almost like
Yes.
the marathon running, where it's not even just the physical aspect, it's the mental game. You got to have the right sort of mental state to be able to invest that amount of time to be able to handle that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely more like a marathon.
Yeah. Especially with the 0.0001% shiny rates. I remember, I think you were telling me about.
Oh yeah.
Jamie Owls, do you enjoy the difficult games, challenging ones? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as I said earlier, I like a game that has like a little challenge in it to get the adrenaline going. However, there were games that I played where the boss was impossible. And the feeling that I would have when I finished that difficult boss, not only do I feel relieved that it's over, but it also gives me this, I'm not going to play this game anymore. An example would be, this was a couple of years ago, but the first Evil Within. And Simbu, I think you played it a little bit. I don't know if you finished it, but there was a boss with like a lock on his head or a safe, and that one, yeah, that was it. That was the game. That was the boss that tells me, okay, I think I'm done. I'm never gonna play this game again.
I did. I got to about chapter 2 and I just put the game aside. I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
And it's funny to that end, Jamie. I remember you running into that with the vampire game with that one big hulking guy.
InfernoCast, you froze.
Oh, am I frozen?
We lost our host.
Oh, I can see you guys.
You were frozen.
You're back.
You
You
were
were frozen for a moment.
You're back now, maybe.
You're broken.
Sorry about that, guys. It said my internet connection was unstable, so I'm back.
Lovely.
I heard everything. I heard all you guys, and so we're good. So, Storm, let me ask you: do you enjoy playing difficult games? Is that something that you like to do? Do you revel in the challenge, or is it something where you're like, oh balls, I don't want to have to fight this boss again, or if you're able to beat it, it just totally demotivates you?
First, I'm going to point out you said the curse word before I did. I'm very proud of myself for that.
Now technically balls may
But
not be a curse
it's
word.
on the spectrum of being bad words. So, I've censored myself. So no. I do like a good challenge. There was one game, Immortal Phoenix Rising. Immortals, Phoenix Rising on the Switch that I played a lot of. Some of the puzzles in there to unlock some areas are stupidly difficult to the point that I have stopped playing it. I have one area, the main mountain, to unlock. So I'm 90% way through the game, but because of those puzzles, I quit because after hours of trying to get through them and you keep dying and you have to, time your jumps right. And there's just no, like, I've tried to look for shortcuts and it's everything. And yeah, I really like that game. It's a lot of fun. You get to ride horses and deers and stuff. So I just like running around the countryside on those. But yeah, if I'm fighting just to get the one little material that I need to unlock the next area, I lose all interest.
Yeah, because then that's not fun if you just can't get
No.
past that one thing, and it's that big roadblock to being able to beat and finish the game.
Yes, and
Ugh.
it's just made. I should go back to it eventually, but at the same time, I'm like, meh, because I have those puzzles to do, and I just don't want to. So I do like the challenge of them. The Valkyrie Queen that I've talked about in the God of War, I've looked online and other people have had as much difficulty with her and have not gone back to the game either. I just, I'll go in, try to fight her now, and I'll lose and then just quit because I've done most of the story stuff. So I have that game completed, just that queen. And she is difficult just for the sake of difficulty, I think, and that is just dumb. It's discouraging. So
And I'm thinking at that point, that's probably in super boss territory where since the game's already beaten, and that's a thing a lot of the developers really like to throw in for those of us that we were able to finish the game or we're able to beat the game, but now we want an extra challenge that's even harder than like the last boss. Oh, here's the emerald weapon, here's the ruby weapon, here's the ultima weapon. You've already beaten Sephiroth. Well, here's 3 enemies that are that much tougher and stronger and will kick your butt quicker.
Yep.
So
here is one more, and then I'll let you have it back. JB Alls had mentioned the remastered games earlier. I'll tell you, Mrs. Pac-Man that I got on the PS5 because every system that I've had has had to have a form of Pac-Man on it. That is my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorite video games ever. And it's just the classic Pac-Man, chasing the pellets. None of the 3D action ones that have come out, meh, on those. But this one, they don't have the same boost and stuff, and she moves slower than she used to. I know this for a fact, and it ticks me off because I'm getting eaten by ghosts more than I used to. I beat that game on the Sega Genesis, of all things, when we had it.
And kind of to remind everybody, the Sega Genesis one has like 99 levels, if I remember right.
Yep.
Yeah. So Storm beat all 99 levels and actually beat a Pac-Man.
Yes, I did.
Nice.
So, for me to not be able to go past level 5 or 6 on this, I'm like, okay, you guys have done something. So I don't know. I'm glad to have it so I can play it, but not the same.
Yeah, and it's funny, the Immortals Phoenix Rising, it reminds me, and Jason, this will probably make you think of it too, the shrines from Tears of the Kingdom, where they're just, so the shrines from Tears of the Kingdom, in my opinion, are harder than the ones that are in Breath of the Wild. And Mobster had played Breath of the Wild as well and could probably attest to if he is able to, Mobster, if you're able to remember some of those shrines from Breath of the Wild. It was crazy to me just how tough Tears of the Kingdom was with some of the shrines. But then one of the fun and funny thing with shrines in both of the Zelda games is that if you know how to, you can cheese all of them. And at some point, it's like, I remember I was finishing up a few of the last shrines where I was, because I finished Tears of the Kingdom, where I was at, it was more trying to get the shrine was the challenge, to where when you actually get in the shrine, that they just call it Raru's Blessing, and it's like a freebie when you get in there. A couple of the ones that weren't like that actually had puzzles, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to cheese this. I'm going to take the platform. I'm going to use the hand. I'm going to raise up the platform, hold it there, and then lower it manually. And then I'm going to jump on it and then use the reverse time. And then it's going to automatically take me up. And then I'm just going to jump up to the next thing and boom, I'm good. I'm already there. I'm done with it.
I've done that already. Cheesed a couple of the shrines.
I
No,
feel
I
like it's probably easier to do that in Tears of the Kingdom than it is in the Breath of the Wild, though.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I would definitely say that's fair. I've heard of some of the people being able to cheese some of the ones in Breath, but there's definitely a larger sense of overall inventiveness in Tears, and
Yeah.
the game freaking teaches you to be inventive with all the systems within it. So, well, this is going to be the other consequence. If you're going to be teaching everybody to be building Optimus Prime to destroy enemies, then yeah, they're going to end up being able to cheese all these shrines. So, oh, that's too funny. I think kind of wrapping up the overall topic of the NES hard versus Souls-like. I'm going to kind of leave it as inconclusive, because I want Runjin Run to put his feedback on the side of the Souls-like, because he has, I think, Runjin Run has not only played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 through 3, and Sekiro, he's beaten them all too, and that is no small feat. Although I want to say, for one of the Dark Souls, he literally followed one of the YouTube videos to a T to be able to beat it. But I mean, it still counts. He did beat it himself. He was following a guide, but like, guidebooks themselves literally gave that to us when we didn't have the internet. So
I was gonna say that who hasn't used a guidebook before?
exactly.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have two guidebooks sitting behind me. What do you mean, liar?
One brief thing, I kind of touched upon this just because I'm genuinely curious. Super bosses. A lot of the NES titles really didn't have super boss or anything like that, because the game was the super hard or super boss thing, especially getting flashbacks of like the hyper speed bikes from Battletoads
Oh God.
and whatnot. Like, that's the super boss. The game is the super boss. But like, Storm, you had mentioned the Valkyrie Queen is one of the super bosses that you've been tangling with. Any other super bosses that you've dealt with in any of the games that you've played to your recollection?
Yes, the one in Mortal Kombat 11 at the very end. She's an evil freaking butthead. Yeah, that one took a couple of tries to get through.
Yeah, what was her name? Not Chronica, something I forget what it is. I know exactly.
I forgot what it was.
That's so funny. I remember I remember that being mentioned. That's so funny. Jamie Owls, any super bosses that you've ever had to tangle with?
I don't know about super bosses, but I just dealt with a lot of like bosses in general that were kind of difficult, but I can't think of anything on top of my head right now that I had to deal with a really bad super boss. But actually, I take that back. Maybe the second Horizon game, that boss right there was pretty difficult, even though I was on the easy setting.
Which boss in Horizon? The last one?
The very last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of her name right now, but she was kind of difficult.
Simbu, how about you? Super bosses? Any that leave you with the flashbacks?
I mean, Valkyrie Queen is one of them. And in Ragnarok, the Berserkers.
Yay.
So you got that to look forward to there, Storm.
Yeah.
I have
Yay.
to this day, I have not beaten a single one of the Berserkers.
Ooh.
Then again, I haven't really tried. But I mean, you really want a super boss? I mean, I'm gonna go with Star Wars Force Unleashed fighting Vader.
Yes, good. That is a great example. Great example. I've heard many a horror story about people fighting Vader in that. Oh, that's a good one. That is such a good one. Nice.
Because you get to see him in Jedi Outcast, but he's not really a. It's not really a boss fight. It's not like Force Unleashed where you have to fight Vader to finish the game.
And for context, for anybody who hasn't, played that, think of the end of what is it, Rogue? What's the one, the Star Wars movie where Vader appears at the end? Is that Rogue One?
Rogue One.
That's, and how he's just easily dispatching. Yeah, that's the kind of difficulty that fighting Vader there really encompasses. Jason, how about you? Super bosses.
Can't think of any in particular ones. I know I've dealt with a few of the Final Fantasy ones after the game's cleared and you got all the extra bosses, but nothing like that particularly sticks out in my head is like one was, oh my God, like I gave up on it. Because even the Final Fantasy ones, if you learn the patterns and use all your spells and stuff, there are ways to beat them. So I can't think of anything that off the top of my head, really.
Nothing in
Come
like
on,
this,
Mr. Pokemon Trainer.
or like
there's no
Disgaea or
super
anything.
bosses in Pokemon. Just level up to 100, you walk through the game.
Yeah, this coming from the guy that saves right every time before he goes after a legendary.
Hey, only when they run away and they lose them.
Mobster, how about you? Any super bosses, or we'll say in multiplayer games, let's say when you have to face Simbu in Halo.
Well,
That's a bad
yeah,
example.
that's easy. I was trying to rack my brain as if I could think of any kind of super boss, but again, I'm not the best when it comes to completing games. I'm notorious for I'll start a game that I like, I'll play if a good amount, and I end up just stopping, and for no reason, not like it got too hard or anything like that. I don't know, decided, all right, I played it enough, or maybe I got distracted by a new game or something. But yeah, the only thing I was thinking of, and I don't even want to say it's a super boss, but like in Mega Man, Dr. Wily was always a pain in the butt, but having like multiple forms and stuff like that, but not quite a super boss.
I'm gonna agree with you there, especially in Mega Man 1, where you have to fight not so you have to, the last level you fight 4 of the enemies all in a row. You get no health boost, and then you have to immediately fight 2 phases of Dr. Wily. So yes, yeah, that's pretty flipping hard. I totally agree with you. That's got to be why Mega Man 1 is one of the hardest of the original NES games. For me, I would probably say for a current game with Tears of the Kingdom, I would say the King Gliok. And Jason, have fun with that. That'll be fun for you. Where it's essentially a 3-headed dragon that spews fire, ice, lightning, and when you get the health bar halfway down, it then goes way up in the air, even out of reach of the bow and arrow. So you have to figure a way to build something on the fly to be able to fly up and get to it. And meanwhile, my character with Link has an outfit with 60 defense, where one of his attacks still takes away like 7 to 10 hearts each. Even with 40 hearts, you're dead in about 5 or 6 hits. On top of that, there's a version of that that's in the depths, where not only is it everything that I just said, but when he hurts you, he disables your heart completely. You can't recover your health. So yeah, that's fun. Jason, you'll have fun with that.
Oh yeah, that'll be a fun one.
And I think I have to say Final Fantasy wise, before I wrapping things up here, probably some of the super bosses from Final Fantasy V, probably some of the hardest, or maybe even like Final Fantasy 12 with some of the bosses there, super boss, like not so much Yasmat, as that's just the boss of endurance. but like the Omega weapon there, and maybe the Zodiark. This Zodiark thing real quick. It's a boss you fight in 12 where you get the energy bar, but once you get the bar down to here, it's like all of your attacks do maybe about 5 to 10% of what damage that they were doing. And his attacks have a 50% chance to kill your characters outright, like completely. You can't stop it. Or they do roughly 2,000 to 5,000 damage to all your characters at once. So you're constantly trying to revive your characters and keep them alive and try and keep them buffed and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. So yeah, difficult games. If anything, some of them can be worth the challenge. I really liked Simbu's points, especially where he was talking about with the Souls like, and I hate to say it, except I don't, where it almost feels like the whole movement schema with that is really slow. It just kind of feels slow. And I like difficult games when the character, whomever you're playing as, controls well enough to be able to kind of support the difficulty. Something like a Mega Man. Mega Man controls like a dream. It's great. So you know what you're getting into. Something difficult like even like the harder challenges, like I mentioned with Tears of the Kingdom, Link controls fantastic. If you can get beyond a lot of that real slow issue, and it's still fun to play as, you can pretty much hopefully be able to conquer anything. So I want to go ahead and take the time again to thank everyone here for joining us, and especially big thanks, of course, to you, the viewers, for watching. Just going to do a quick outro with everybody here. Jason the 13th, again, you'll be able to find him on his YouTube channel, Jason the 13th, for gameplay videos for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as well as some of the Tears of the Kingdom. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Simbu, Simbu Darkfang, you can find at Basement of the Dead in Aurora, Illinois. Again, Basement of the Dead, Aurora, Illinois. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just one honorable mention here for super bosses, the Water Temple Ocarina of Time.
Fair. And that's more like a boss of attrition, of frustration. I mean, you want to talk about like a near perfect game? That's the mole on the Cindy Crawford, the Water Temple. Stormrosesky, you can find her at both her Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. And it was Chronica. I googled it. I looked it up. So it was Chronica, the final boss.
Ah, wow. I can't believe I was able to remember that.
And you know, okay, real quick, what is a real stupid hard game sometimes? Fall Guys. Guys,
okay.
Frustrating.
It is
Yes.
frustratingly
Yes.
hard sometimes, and I will quit just because it like makes no sense at all.
Mhm.
Makes absolutely no sense, and you get stuck in yes.
It's so funny that was my main worry about you guys dragging me into Fork Knife, about it being like Fall Guys, because I played Fall Guys for about 4 to 5 hours, and I was worried about Fork Knife being that way, and it's not. I was really pleasantly surprised how well Epic designed the overall gameplay loop for Fork Knife.
Yep.
But I digress. Sorry.
Yes.
We all
Jamie
digress.
Jamie Owls, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, as always, thank you. I enjoy talking about video games.
And we enjoy talking about video games with you as well. And Mobster, thank you again for joining us as well.
Oh, of course, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, night, whatever.